my name is Mariam Yusuf. I'm the program director here at the Somali Museum. So a lot of what I do is making programs, applying for grants for some of our programs, and kind of facilitating them as well.
I'm Nadira. I work in program coordination as well as event planning, and then I do a bit of marketing.
During the Civil War in 1991, a lot of Somalis were displaced into refugee camps in Kenya and in Ethiopia. And so a lot of the times with those types of refugee systems where people are seeking asylum or are seeking, to live, flee essentially to a place where they can, prosper. And so we, in true nomadic fashion, sent out scouts into the United States to figure out, hey, where can we go and actually, find jobs and be able to establish lives and still be able to support our families that are still in Somalia who haven't gotten a chance, or in refugee camps who haven't gotten a chance to be placed in somewhere in the West. And so my uncles found Minnesota, and they realized there were a lot of programs that were, great for family and children and refugees, since there was a large among refugee population among people that were able to, they were able to bolster their services and that they provided for refugees. And so we came here, and we're oral historians, or all of our traditions are oral. So yes, I can tell you about the origins. The building, though, I'm not so sure about, but this is a building that is owned by Somali. It's Somali owned, so the building is Tujinga Mall. There are some Somali stores here, so probably a little bit why we leaned here. So the museum was born in 2013, so we just celebrated our 10th anniversary. And it was an effort to preserve the culture and the traditions and the artifacts of Somalis, considering that we were, fleeing our home so rapidly at that point. First part of the room is actually all of history. It kind of speaks about colonization. It speaks about the vessels that we have, how important camels are to Somali peoples, and then it moves into a separate room where we talk about agriculture, and we talk about some of the goods that are being made, usually traded goods or goods that families would make to eat their foods or to carry their stuff, or some of the things that are used in homes, like furniture that are made from animal skin or woven or what have you. And then we have the last part of the room. There's another room that kind of talks about womanhood, and then transitioned into the introduction of Islam versus culture and how that happened. And it also talks about the goods that we traded. So there's a lot of frankincense and myrrh and acacia bark over there. Then that last room is the nomadic hut, the nomadic home, as well as our celebration and our weapons, so drums, and the weapons that we use for hunting and for fighting.
That is. So the only thing with really a direct timeline is the history that kind of goes in order, but everything else is kind of like a snapshot back before colonization. So the conversations typically that we have with people who come in, they interact with the space and then we talk to them about it. So anything that's there, they'll just ask questions, and then we kind of, especially that fashion, women and Islam room, sometimes we'll talk about the present and the way people interact with things today or the past, but there's not really a timeline in the way that we tell Somali history. Sometimes we're talking about the present the whole way through. Sometimes we talk about the past. Sometimes we talk about what the future might look like why Minnesota, what in the future. So I think that the lack of signs and things like direct you through the space usually opens up, especially being that we're an oral culture, gives more space for more other conversations depending on the person and what they bring to the space.
Yeah, people who come in with intentions of not really learning, but more so telling us how history should have been, or how certain things should be, how we should run, why we should put on certain events or not, who we should highlight, who we shouldn't highlight. And so people with a lot of opinions who come in with the intention of changing the organization, and we're open to feedback, but feedback that isn't unbiased, and we try to do that as much as possible.
But I will say the best people you interact with are children who come in to learn about their own culture, and they just get to run and bounce around the place. And they don't treat it as a museum where everything's fragile, but a space in which they can interact with their own culture, and you get to watch them bounce in between different, oh my god, my mom used to do that, oh my god, that thing, I remember the camels when I went back home, I saw one, it's so tall, and oh my god, da-da-da-da, and you can watch someone light up and feel the space is enriching them, rather than something they get to interact with and touch around and get to say, oh yeah, I went there and cultured.
Oh yeah.
Which is, you can tell. Yeah. You can tell.
one of the things that we want to do is make sure that Somalis who are in Minnesota have a space where they feel seen and kind of like feel like they, oh my God, my culture is very present here. And then also be able to have this be a part of Greater Minnesota, because we are a part of Minnesota, right? And so just kind of having the museum as a place where everyone can interact, and our hope is to be able to have a bigger museum where there'll be a lot more interactive things, as opposed to like, you know, things on the wall and a lot of history. We'd love to have workshops where people will be able to engage with the culture more authentically, just to have a greater understanding of culture, just being able to kind of like get into a peak of our lives a little bit and not be, you know, like these people that are here, but kind of be able to, you know, see our lives and kind of like walk in our shoes for a bit while they're here, visit, you know, their nomadic home and be able to go inside of it and be like, oh my God, like, you guys lived in here. That's so cool. Someone wove this from their hands. That's a lot of effort. Oh my gosh, you guys have camels. You've been hurting them. You know, just kind of like being immersed in our lives, or what our lives used to be, and why we love our culture so much. Yeah, just being able to, I guess,
Respect it.
Yeah, respect it and be a part of it even. That would be awesome. Yeah.
I think when I do tours for people, I usually try to see what way they're trying to approach the museum with and like kind of shift their view. I think a lot of people come in with the idea of like feeling like a spectator. They're gonna like look and watch and learn. But I try to shift them into feeling like they're a part of the space. So I think a lot of the things on the walls and things that we have around can just look like objects, but I want people to kind of delve into what are the thought process behind these things. And like a lot of the things that are woven, like the containers that people put milk in, it's the same technique they use to build a house. And like when you follow that like line of thought, I feel like you have a better understanding of how Somali people grow up. Because for me, I'm Somali American, and I think it's better when you interact with your community on a day-to-day basis rather than just give them one event that's really special and flashy, and like give them something like my daily life is better because the museum does da-da-da in our community. And I think we hope to do that in the future, where people think of the Somali Museum as a place that they can find a source of just not Somali culture, just to like look at it and be like, oh, my people, but more so like being able to connect with a part of themselves that maybe Minnesota doesn't provide right now. But we are part of Minnesota, and so we're just kind of carving out a space for ourselves that's